You've slowly bought into Luke Musgrave as this summer has gone on. What's that process been like? Just
What's
because,
this
yeah.
slowly? I've been
You've
in
been
on
very
him,
slow, Matthew.
I've been on him for quite some time now. Talking about just look, the fact of the matter is like his size speed combo. Connor, we talked about this a little bit on draft night when he went to the Packers, and we've talked about it throughout the preseason. He made my love list again, but I've just been watching him in practice. I've been seeing him in games, and I'm just like, this guy is bigger. A guy that size shouldn't be that fast. And now he's playing tight end. He's going to be matched up against linebackers. It's just it's unfair. And the fact is that he's playing a lot. So again, going back to Dwayne, so that's just what I've noticed watching the games. And then Dwayne McFarland, again, his preseason utilization report on fantasylife.com, he noted this. Jordan Love had 37 dropbacks this preseason. And of those 37 dropbacks, Luke Musgrave had an 84% route participation, a 22% target share. Those are tight end one numbers. Now, the track record of rookie tight ends having fantasy production isn't a long list, right? You've got Gronk, you've got Evan Ingram, you've had flashes here and there, but Dulcich last year, had some moments. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that I want to go into a season with him as my starting tight end. I'd want somebody that's a little bit more established. But I absolutely love him as a number 2 tight end or for deeper leagues as a flyer, because I do think there's a decent chance he's the number 2 pass catcher on what I think will be a better than people think offense. There's a chance Jordan Love is good, guys. I actually think Jordan Love is going to be good, adequate to decent. I don't know that he's going to be great, but I think there's a chance he's above average.
All right, that takes us to number seven. After an offseason where the acquisitions of DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny were the big talking points around the Eagles' backfield, number 7 here, Barry, Kenneth Gainwell will have a legit role in that Eagles' backfield.
We talked about this when the news came out that he was running with the ones, and people are like, "Well, come on!" And they're just resting Swift and Penny, who have had extensive injury histories. Like, when the real games start, it'll be Penny and Swift and Penny, and Gainwell will just have his small little role. And I don't think that's the case. Again, if you watch these games, this is going to be a 3-headed monster. Ultimately, the Eagles' backfield will be a 3-headed monster with Swift, Penny, and Gainwell. You'll still see a little bit of Boston Scott. Obviously, Jalen Hurts always a threat at the goal line. But my argument here is that Gainwell is going to be basically equal to these guys. It's going to be Swift, Penny, and Gainwell. It's going to be a true 3-headed monster. And if you're saying all 3 of these guys have more or less an equal amount of touches, Gainwell is by far the cheapest of the 3 at ADP. Also, this is a stat that I think is crazy, but like Kenneth Gainwell had, something like 11 fewer goal-to-go carries than Miles Sanders last year. Like, they were okay getting it when they got in close. They're okay giving it to Kenneth Gainwell between the tackles. Like, they use him in a variety of ways, not just as a 2-minute drill guy or a passing down back. So, yeah, I'm buying into Kenneth Gainwell as a thing this year.
Yeah, and to further prove your point, Barry, it's a simple one, but Kenneth Gainwell plays, and you can't always say that about Rashad Penny and DeAndre Swift. So if that backfield gets thin quickly, Gainwell's role can only improve. All right, number 8. James Cook will be the RB1 for the Bills and get north of 15 touches a game. Jay, we know they brought in Damian Harris. They have Latavius Murray there. But James Cook was drafted in the 2nd round for a reason 2 years ago.
He was, and Josh Allen's never really had that go-to running back that they've wanted. At the same time, there's a lot of guys on that team now between Diggs and Davis and Cook and Harris and Latavius Murray and Dalton Kincaid, and there's just a lot of mouths to feed. So I agree that Cook is worth drafting, at his current ADP just because of the upside and what that offense could be. That could be the best offense in football, but I think there's going to be some annoying situations where Damian Harris is vulturing, and some games he's just not as involved as he could be.
Barry, is Cook one of those guys that's, an adequate approach if you're going maybe 0 RB or kind of waiting just a little bit?
Yeah, I think he's better than that, honestly. I think he's somebody to actively target. Jay just said it right there, right? He's just like, they have a lot of guys there. That's right. They have a lot of guys. Like, whatever. James Cook is a special talent. There's a reason the Bills went out and got a 2nd-round pick. And I think the fantasy industry and drafters are reacting too strongly to Damian Harris coming in, and getting the red zone working, getting that touchdown in the preseason game. Yes, Damian Harris or Latavius Murray or whoever. there will be some goal line touches that don't go to James Cook. And Josh Allen, of course, is always a threat to run it in himself. Having said that, think about Ramondre Stevenson last year, and there's slightly different running backs, right, obviously, but the point is that Damian Harris was on the Patriots last year. He had that goal to go, touchdown equity. Ramondre Stevenson had 6 touchdowns last year, literally just 6 touchdowns last year. And yet Ramondre Stevenson, because of his passing participation, because of his usage, was still a top 7 running back in fantasy. And by the way, the Bills are going to play at a higher pace of play with a better quarterback and a better offense and be in scoring position more often than the Patriots were last year. So I just think James Cook, if you're telling me this guy's definitely getting 15 and north of 15 touches a game in one of, if not the best offense in football, I'm in. I'm in on James Cook, and I'm not worried if Damian Harris vultures a handful of touchdowns over the course of the year. James Cook is going to get his. He's going to be a true 3-down back for the best offense in football.
Barry, for number 9, I know you were smiling ear to ear when you put this one in. You're buying that Sam Howell is going to be a very good fantasy streamer this year.
Look, we've talked about him a lot. Future MVP, future Hall of Famer, Sam Howell, hail the Commanders, hail victory. But look, all my jokes aside, Connor, you have to admit, as somebody who breaks down film for a living, Sam Howell has looked pretty good this preseason, looks dialed in, getting rave reviews in camp. There's a couple of things that you really like about this. Number 1, he has an aggressive play caller in Eric Bieniemy. He has elite weapons around him. Now, I'm a little nervous about Terry McLaurin's toe, of course, but assuming help from McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, along with a really nice pass-catching running back in Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson will be used a little bit, whether it's Logan Thomas or Cole Turner at the tight end position. We know what Curtis Samuel can do as well. All of a sudden, you're like, you know what? There's a lot of skill players around this kid who can run. Over 1,100 rushing yards in his last college season. You think about what he did that one NFL game, the last NFL game he played, that start against Dallas last week. Like, he was a top 10 fantasy quarterback that week. He had almost 40 rushing yards and a touchdown in that one game, his first game ever. So just the mobility, I think he's potentially, Connor, you keep me honest here, but I think Sam Howell has Daniel Jones-like upside. I think he's got that kind of speed. And, Daniel Jones was like a borderline top 10 quarterback last year.
And what I like about him, listen, if you're going to bet on late-round quarterbacks in fantasy, you bet on guys that have a big arm and are aggressive with the big arm and run. Those are the two things. So Sam Howell, as long as he keeps that aggressive nature, which is really a special part of his game, as we showed in the highlights there, and does continue to run, there's going to be value for him in fantasy, Jay.
Yeah, there will be. And I'm looking forward to the footage of Matthew, the unicorn, and the teddy bear after the show, sitting down to watch Sam Howell YouTube highlights. But I think with Sam Howell, why is there such a disparity between him and Anthony Richardson, just in perception? Because Howell actually ran the ball 183 times his last year in college, whereas Richardson was a bit more of a reluctant runner, as we've talked about. Do you think the gap between, Sam Howell's going outside the top 20 quarterbacks, right. Richardson is creeping up towards the top 12. Is that warranted?
Richardson has started to rise where you get a little bit of cold feet. You're like, okay, I liked him as my value pick. Now we see people taking him as a legitimate starter at times. And I think what Richardson, that combine, and this isn't an insult, but that combine at his size, what he was able to do from explosive scores and 40 time will always live with people.
Yep.
Now, does that translate onto the field? That remains to be seen. And Howell's just not that freakishly built, speedy kind of guy, more of a scrambler, turn it into runs kind of guy. So I think that'll be the difference there. But in fantasy, all yards count the same.
Yep.
I'll say this. I think, Jay, you bring up a great point. I know how much it pains you to say nice things about Sam Howell, who is my QB2 in our Superflex show league. But you bring up a great point. And I think, honestly, some of it is just right. Anthony Richardson looks the part. By the way, we all like Anthony Richardson. This isn't to denigrate Anthony Richardson. We love Anthony Richardson here. But just Anthony Richardson looks like if you were doing central casting for a movie, I need the big superstar quarterback. He looks like Anthony Richardson, right? It's a little bit of I think there's a picture of DK Metcalf on Hunter Renfrow, and you're like, wait, these two guys play the same position, right, next to each other? The fact of the matter is that he looks like an NFL quarterback, whereas Sam Howell looks like, I don't know,
Creatine Baker
bartender. So I think that's part of it, honestly. But I think you could make the argument and I'm a homer, so whatever. But you could make the argument, right, that he will run more than Richardson this year, right? Because, again, we've talked about this. Anthony Richardson's instincts are not to take off and run, which it is Howell's. Howell had more rushing yards his senior year in college than Richardson did. There's a chance that he runs more than Richardson, and we think they've got a better offense than the Colts. Like, he's certainly got more. I would take Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, the running backs, and Curtis Samuel over Michael Pittman, Alec Pierce, and who knows who's going to be the running back, right? You know, whatever. They got Jelani Woods and at tight end, and then, you know, maybe it's Deion Jackson or Evan Hull or Zach Moss. Like, I think you could make an argument that Howell does wind up with a better fantasy year than Anthony Richardson. It's not how I have them ranked, but I don't think it's a crazy question. And I think Howell is a tremendous value in drafts.
Our last preseason storyline that you're buying into here, Barry, the Patriots offense will be much improved under Bill O'Brien, and Hunter Henry will be a focal point of the passing offense. We heard so much after they signed Mike Gesicki, but it is clearly still Hunter Henry's show at the tight end spot for an offense that values the position.
Look, first off, the idea that the Patriots offense will be better, like, nowhere to go but up. Like, I mean, let's just, like, that's a little shooting fish in a barrel. But it has looked competent and put together in the preseason this year, whereas last year it did not. Bill O'Brien traditionally has used a lot of 12 in terms of play calling. So the tight ends have always been a big part of the Patriots offense, and I think it'll continue to be probably even more so with Bill O'Brien calling the plays this year. Hunter Henry has a connection with Mac Jones. Hunter Henry's good, man. Hunter Henry, like when he was with the Chargers, all he did was score touchdowns. He's been that way with the Patriots as well. Mike Gesicki already banged up. I know Hunter Henry's dealing with a little something as well, but the expectation here is that, like, they're going to need red zone threats on that team. And so I like Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry is, after Luke Musgrave, Hunter Henry is one of my favorite late round, two tight, if you're in a league that values, tight end or deeper league. He's one of my favorite deeper league tight end late round flyers.
All right, that takes us to list number 2. These are the 10 chicken players, a nervous bird, right? Players that you just feel a little uneasy about, Barry. And here they are in DeAndre Swift, Mike Evans, Najee Harris, George Kittle, J.K. Dobbins, Dak Prescott, Drake London, Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, and Deshaun Watson. Barry, who's a player on this list that, might surprise some people, but explain why you're a little bit uneasy about them?
Look, I mean, a lot of these guys made my hate list as well. I'm just a little nervous. But how about one that I had? I think Dak Prescott makes me a little nervous. Guy doesn't run anymore. He's averaging under 12 rushing yards a game the last 2 years. He lost Kellen Moore, who I think is I thought that was a big loss for them. They want to run more, and they're going to have a really good defense, so there's not going to be a lot of shootouts. J.K. Dobbins doesn't catch passes. Health has been an issue. Missed a lot of time in the preseason. Now, reports are, obviously, Todd Monken uses his running backs in the passing game. So there's a chance that Dobbins, who did catch balls in college somewhat, suddenly does discover usage in the passing game. But so far, we just haven't seen it. Three-headed monster there in Baltimore. So I'm a little nervous about J.K. Dobbins, especially in terms of where he's going. But all these guys have question marks around them. I'm sure they'll be fine. I have them ranked appropriately. But I've just found, as I've gone through drafts, I just tend to draft somebody that's similarly ranked and not actually deal with any one of these players.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.